Hey everyone, welcome back to On the Fence Movie Reviews. I am Adrian, joined by my co-host Rob, and today we are going to be talking about Space Jam: A New Legacy. So, Space Jam: A New Legacy stars LeBron James and Don Cheadle. LeBron plays himself in sort of an exaggerated version. He's kind of at a disconnect with his son, his younger son. His son isn't as much into basketball as he would like him to be. The son is rather more into like tech and building games and that sort of thing. And so they seem to have a little bit of a disconnect and they butt heads in that area, which leads us into, from there we get an introduction into LG Rhythm, a play on words there, obviously, for algorithm, played by Don Cheadle, who has some sort of sinister plan that he wants to be recognized. He is this brand new tech built by Warner Brothers Studios. And so after a tour at the studios and some sort of production meeting, his son gets sucked into the serververse. And from there, LeBron has to play a basketball game to save his son and perhaps the world. Rob, let's jump right into it. What were your thoughts of this sort of a sequel to the original Space Jam New Legacy?
Okay, so wow, my thoughts. Okay, I'm trying to let me
It
see.
looks like you got some.
I have some thoughts, yes. So I oh man, I'm trying to
He's speechless. Do you need me to go first?
LeBron had me speechless. No, okay, so exaggerated version of LeBron, yes. Here's the thing. And I tried to remember back. I even looked up some video clips and stuff of the first Space Jam, because at the very beginning of this movie, I felt like this was like the LeBron show, LeBron highlights. It was all about LeBron. Um, Honestly, I had a whole other, when this movie first started, I had a whole other movie in my mind that like I was like, this would be cool if they went like, because they start off with young LeBron and
Yeah.
kind of his the work ethic that he was instilled, how to be a great basketball player. And I was like, imagine if if they just stuck with like a young LeBron and maybe used him to kind of go through this movie, and not so much the grown-up LeBron that we get. But
Yeah.
whole other tangent on that. Like, I thought that would have probably been a better movie. But things I liked about this movie, and I don't know if it's that I like them or if that they just harken back to my memory of childhood, is I love the Looney Tunes. So Warner Brothers has a plethora of cartoon characters that I've watched from my young years when I was a child to that I still watch today as an adult. So they're all in this movie. And I there was a lot of nostalgia. They use nostalgia. They use callbacks to other things, to other movies that are not even like the old Space Jam, just other movies throughout the Warner Brother library. Callbacks to a lot of movies, and I found myself at certain parts just like, oh hey, that's so and so, or hey, that's that character, or hey, oh, that person over there, I remember that. So that's something that I was just like, okay, like that's pretty cool. I see what you're doing. But with saying that, I know what you did, Warner Brothers, and what you're doing is you're trying to
product placement.
Yes, you're trying to get me to like this movie by bringing all the things I enjoyed as a child and as an adult and throw this in this movie. You're not going to trick me, because I know what you're doing.
They're not going to trick you into paying for HBO Max. They're saying, look at all these characters.
Here's the thing.
HBO Max.
Here's the thing. I was already paying for HBO Max because of Game of Thrones, because I love me some Game of Thrones. We're not talking about Game of Thrones right now. We're talking about Space Jam: A New Legacy. In my opinion, I see what they did. And I will say this: if I was a small child, and it's very colorful, it's very poppy. I will say the as far as the art, LeBron as a cartoon, cool to look at. As far as like, I was trying to find, like I said, ways to like this movie or things to enjoy about it. And I was just like, if I was a kid, I probably would. It's the movie's very chaotic. Like there's no real like there's a story, but there's no like this like, oh, this makes sense. It's more like
There's
all
no
this stuff.
logic.
Yeah, there's no logic to this movie, which would entertain a kid though, because it's just all over the place. There's stuff um exploding, there's colors and bright lights and sounds, and a child would probably enjoy this movie. Me as an adult, I did not like.
Okay.
I don't like where they went with this movie because I don't think it made sense.
It's
um I seen what they were doing as far as them trying to get the nostalgia to be like, hey, we gotta entertain the adults somehow, because the bright colors and the loud sounds and the funny things that happen are going to entertain the kids, but let's try and figure out a way to get the adults involved in this movie. And I see the effort that they try to do it, but it just didn't work for me, even though they had one of the agents from the Matrix right behind the player's bench. I was like, I see what you're doing, but it's not going to work. Adrian, what did you think about uh a Space Jam: A New Legacy? Because I could sit
you
here and
sound so
pick apart.
frustrated that you're having a hard time getting it all out
Well,
there.
because Adrian, here's the thing: is and we kind of mentioned this
It
before.
sounds like you're taking it a little personally, Rob.
I'm
I
not.
think you
I'm
need to
not.
step back.
I'm not taking it personally. The thing is that they didn't need to make this movie. They could have called it something else. What they did is they took the name of Space Jam, which we love because of the great Bugs Bunny and the great Michael Jordan. They took that name and were like, hey, we're going to throw it on something else with King James. And oh geez, the references of King James throughout this movie, like the entire movie, everyone just called him King James. Just like, oh
Hey, it's all
geez.
about brand.
It
You just
is.
got to
And
build that branding.
okay, but that's the issue, is this movie felt like branding for LeBron and not
Yeah, I mean,
and
there was even the part where he lands in Toonland, and instead of making like a body print into the ground, it's like a Nike symbol. Like,
yes, it was all branding. And that's maybe where I had a lot of the issue, is that at least for me, with the first Space Jam, Michael Jordan obviously was in the movie, but I don't feel like Michael Jordan was the movie. I think that they used him really well. They used the other NBA
yeah,
players very well in the first Space Jam movie too. In this one, I feel like they just grabbed NBA players and were like, hey, throw these, and WNBA players as well, throw these players
yeah.
in there
So
just
you know what?
because.
I mean, let's talk about that. Okay,
Go
so
ahead, go ahead.
for me, again, I agree with you, and I will go as far as saying LeBron is just a terrible actor. The acting was just extraordinarily bad.
Okay.
It wasn't until I was, banging my head against the wall. It wasn't until the he gets to Toon World, and we start meeting all the tunes, and Bugs takes him to all the different areas to try to get the team back together. Um, and they start doing their Looney Tune things that I found myself enjoying that. I mean, I
Okay.
I enjoy the heck out of Looney Tunes. I can watch those cartoons all day long. I grew up pretty much on those, and I enjoy them, and I still find them hilarious. And so those like little bits that they were doing, which were fun,
Right.
and but then when we get to the basketball game, again, it is pretty much like, hey, it's a who's who of WBIP, and it's like, okay, well, there's it from from the movie It, and Agent Smith from Matrix, and you got the Animaniacs in the background, you got Mr. Freeze from Batman and Robin, and it's like you have so many different characters in the background, and the sad part about it is that you could tell that they were all stand-in actors, and it just looked like you were at Comic-Con, and with really bad cosplay. So like
Yeah.
that was kind of annoying too. But I like what you mentioned about these NBA players. It's like they basically took their images and threw them in this game. At least with the original Space Jam, Charles Barkley, Sean Bradley, Patrick Ewing, Muggsy Bogues, all those players from the 90s, they actually had something to do. Like I
Right.
remember
Yes.
that whole montage of the players going to through all like the different like testing and the psychiatric thing. There was like that whole bit with the sad like song playing while they were trying to figure out what was wrong with them. That was hilarious stuff. Like that, it kind of works because it gave the players something to do, and it also led us into a little bit of their personality.
Right.
Here it's just like, oh, that's Damian Lillard, and that's AD and Diana Taurasi, and then they just turned them into the characters, and so you don't really get to really know these characters. Or
Right.
I mean, if you're not fully a basketball fan, you might not know, okay, why should I be afraid of game time? You know, why should I
Yes. Yes.
care about, like, because you don't really know who these characters are, right? You know, you don't really get it, you know. And again, it's like when it got to the basketball game, the climax, the most important part of the film, or at least it should have been the most important part of the film, it was like I didn't even care. And it was so absurd too that it was like they were up by like 1,000 points. And I get it, it
Oh
was like supposed to be they're
yeah.
playing in their son's basketball game. So it was like they're up by 1,000 points and they're like losing. How are they ever going to come back? And then halftime, just like the first one, halftime, they learned to, you know, or no, I think it was like third quarter, right? Yeah, like midway through the third quarter, they switch it up and like, all right, and then they come back, but they come back in like 2 seconds, and it was like, oh,
Right.
they have the lead now. It was so like there was no real stakes or kind of like, I mean, yes, it is a kids movie. Like you're not gonna feel like any sort of real tension, like, oh my god, are they gonna make it? You know they're gonna win, and you know that they're gonna make it, but
Right.
it's just kind of like the way they did it was so quick, and like there was no real like struggle, if you will. I don't know. It's just,
Here's the thing.
man, it was just weird.
This is what I'll say is that, and you know, I don't, I mean, yeah, no, I want to compare them because I will say this: the first Space Jam, I will say, was entertaining. This Space Jam: A New Legacy, there were parts about it, and I'm not gonna. There were a couple parts I chuckled. None of them LeBron was involved at all. It was. I think when like Taz shows up, when Yosemite Sam, I think Daffy tells him to shoot the ball, and he starts blasting the ball away. Like that made me laugh. Everything that I laughed about had to do with the
The
Looney
Looney Tunes,
Tunes.
yeah.
Yes. So that for me, like you kind of said yourself, when they go into the Looney Tune world and they start building up, you know, the team and start bringing the tunes back, that stuff to me, I found myself laughing, chuckling. That was more entertaining than any of the like LeBron and his son's relationship, and I never felt any of that. All the entertainment value for this movie came when the tunes became involved. And I will say this: the first Space Jam was entertaining. There was nothing really outside of the tunes that was entertaining for me. And you had mentioned it when the first Space Jam, you have the NBA players where they take their powers and you kind of see what happens to them. You know, they're going through their stuff, and some of that stuff was funny. Whereas this, they're just taking their likeness. It's not really their, you know, they have no real, other than them talking to LeBron's son, they have no real involvement in the movie. So you're not like,
Yeah.
I would have loved to see Klay Thompson be like, oh, I can't shoot, or, you know, going to counseling or something because he lost his jumper. But that's not what we got. So it just
Yeah.
wasn't as entertaining. And also, I mean, I just, to me, I would have been okay. I get where this is, you know, whatever, 20 years later or however many years later that this movie takes place. As far as like, you know, just in time, real time, like, you know, Jordan's movie was a long time ago, and this movie is like what,
Yeah.
20 years or whatever it was.
Yeah. I
But
think they even referenced it. It was like, oh, that was 25 years ago or something
right,
like that. Yeah.
but the thing, and I get technology is different and everything, but they have the aliens from the Monstars
Yeah, they do.
in
They
the
have the monsters
movie.
there.
Like they could have just been like, to me, I would have been, I think
Outside of that, and then the quick reference of how long ago it was, they didn't really
also
even bother to acknowledge the first
right,
film.
right. So I think maybe if they would have kind of, I would have been like, I think it would have been more entertaining as far as storyline, been like, oh, the aliens disappeared for this many years. Hey, Michael Jordan's retired and he's doing something else. Let's go back and try and, you know, take over Earth again. And then we get like a LeBron kind of has to step up. I feel like that would have been a little more entertaining as opposed to this whole digital and you know, digital world and algae rhythm, which I think, and I feel like Don Cheadle was just, I don't know. I don't know what they
Yeah,
did to Don Cheadle, but the dude's a great actor. But in this movie, I think this was probably just fun for him. I don't know. Go ahead, Adrian.
I, yeah, I think there's that, you know, and I will agree that I think that was the most disappointing thing, because I would have liked to have seen, I don't want to say more references, because I do believe a film that is a sequel, especially when there's a large gap, um, should stand on its own, but it
Right.
should also at least acknowledge or reference the first one without relying on it too much. And I think here, I think they could have had better references.
Yes,
Like
yes.
I don't, and again, I'm not sure what they could have done, but
there was
I
there
mean,
was also at halftime there was a Michael that shows up, but that's all I'll say about it.
okay,
That
so let's
had
talk
me
about that.
laughing. That had
Now
me
I
laughing.
read now from, and this is where I got upset because I read, I forget which publication, and it was not like some cheap internet publication. It was like one of the big ones. It was like
Okay.
Hollywood Reporter or Variety. They had mentioned that Michael Jordan was going to make a cameo in this film, right? So when that part came on, I was like, okay, this could be interesting. And I was kind of almost waiting for that part, right? And so I was like, I want to see what kind of part he plays in this film, And then so when it shows up, it ends up being Michael B. Jordan, which was kind of a
I
funny joke,
I
but
knew from the very beginning when Daffy comes in and he's like, "Oh, I got Michael Jordan." I was just like, I know who it is. It's not Michael Jordan.
but at the same time, I was like, come on, man, like you could have had Michael Jordan make an appearance, and
Yeah,
even if he doesn't play in the game, at least he's
coach. He
there and
could
he
have
makes
coach
that
or be a
appearance.
coach or something.
Yeah, like he's giving LeBron some advice about, like, how to do it, or like, I've been here before, this is what we can do, or whatever, and that could have been more interesting. And Bill Murray, that's all I got to say.
Yeah, yes. I feel like that too. There was no real comic relief in this movie. It was all LeBron. You the
LeBron's trying to tell the jokes, and his timing is
Yeah,
just
and
bad. He's
I
not
mean
a
he's
comedian.
not a comedian, he's not an actor, he's a basketball player. And I think you make a excellent point right there. Michael Jordan obviously is not a comedian or a movie star, but you had Bill Murray in there to kind
Well,
of
you had
like,
Bill Murray, and I forget the actor's name, the guy who plays Newman from Seinfeld. He was also there
oh
for
yes, yes,
kind of like that slapstick sort of laughs, like
right,
goofball that falls down and gets hurt and all that stuff. But you put these, comedic actors around him that it's helps kind of elevate the comedy and the levity.
right,
So you're not so honed into his lack of acting ability. And I think here you put it all on LeBron. I mean, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. I mean, his comedic
right.
timing was bad, and there's even parts where he's trying to make like sort of meta humor where he says something like "athletes and acting never works" or something like that.
Yeah,
And what was meant to be a joke was never more true. It was 100% true. Yeah, actors and athletes, that doesn't seem to work. But anyways,
yep.
Rob, I know it goes without saying, but what is your verdict for
So
this film?
I'm definitely gonna stay on the fence with this movie. I started watching it and I fell asleep for about 20 minutes and I had to rewind it. Uh, so I had to watch it more than I wanted to, but I'm gonna say stay on the fence when it comes to Space Jam: A New Legacy. If you want to watch a Space Jam, watch the one with Michael Jordan and Bugs Bunny because that is the superior Space Jam.
Likewise, I will say that I will stay on the fence and can't really recommend it. I mean, I watched it with my kids, but again, it was the same thing where they were bored when it was just LeBron and his kid and that stuff. But then once the Looney Tunes showed up, they enjoyed it. But like I said, it's just I can't fully recommend the film. So I'm gonna just say stay on the fence and yeah. Anyways, guys, what did you think of Space Jam: A New Legacy? Did you like it? Did you hate it? What were your thoughts? Why don't you comment down below and let us know? Also, don't forget to click like, subscribe, and share with all of your friends. And follow us on Instagram at On the Fence Movie Reviews.
And remember, we will catch you on the fence.